Leinster then started with back-to-back wins, as they always seem to do in the URC, beat Zebre, and then ran up a big score against Benetton at the weekend. But the main story is obviously the confirmation that Stuart Lancaster is going to leave Leinster next summer, take over as head coach at Racing in Paris. He'll have been at Leinster for 7 seasons by then. When he arrived back in 2016, everyone wondered how that balance of power will be divided between himself and Leo Cullen. It has just turned out to be the most beautiful meeting of minds.
Yeah, it really has. I think, it's probably a perceived risk because of what happened with England in 2015. But I don't think, I think we're able to retrospectively reflect now on what Stuart wasn't able to do as England manager. He was very much he was very much like the non-coach. He wasn't able to do what he loved doing. He was able to wasn't able, all the press stuff that he did, all the extra peripheral stuff. I think that was not his cup of tea, and he will have to deal with that in Racing, I'm sure, when it comes to it. But what Stuart is excellent at is he's an outstanding coach, and he wants to be in a tracksuit every day. He's not your conventional football manager that watches other coaches train the team and then he selects the side. That's not him. He wants to be down and dirty with them. He wants to see the improvement day to day. And it was a meeting of minds because I think Leo was comfortable in his position of being able to have a master plan, but allows Stuart to go about the different components of the game and plugging him into that overall system. So he'll be a hugely difficult guy to replace. I guess Leinster would never have thought they would have had him for 7 seasons, so they should be very thankful for the fact. I've only heard great things about him. He's been incredibly generous to me as an analyst in meeting up and pointing me in the right direction. So he's a guy that is more than happy to share his IP, and a very, very impressive guy and a really nice guy to be. So you can't have any bad will towards him about leaving. I think we've done very well from a Leinster perspective. I'm reverting back to tight there. Sorry. Leinster have done very well to have had him for 7 years. In honesty, one Heineken Cup or Champions Cup in that time is probably a bit of a disappointment considering semis and finals, but the quality of play and the development of the squad has been outstanding, and I think that's what will set Leinster up, irrespective of who does come in. The confidence that those younger players now have, as you alluded to earlier on, bodes well for any other coach that may come in and take over.
On that then, so it's a time of huge change for Leinster from right at the very top. So Mick Dawson is just a part of the CEO. Johnny Sexton is probably, it's gone from definitely to probably going to be retiring in a year's time after the World Cup. We've seen Dennis Leamy and Felipe Contepomi go, Sean O'Brien and Andrew Goodman have come in. And Leo Cullen is on this constant rolling 1-year contract. Now, there's no suggestion that he's going to leave anytime soon. But does that put a pressure because of Cullen's contractual situation on Leinster to replace Lancaster with an experienced head, or could they go for an up-and-coming coach? Could they look at a Sean O'Brien or an Andrew Goodman and say, even 1 year at this club, you're ready to step up?
I think there's a few factors in this. The last thing you want is mass change, and there has been an awful lot of change. With Mick Dawson behind the scenes, with Dennis Leamy moving on, with Felipe moving on, they are significant changes. So you do want a stability. I guess a huge amount will be dependent on what happens with Leo on his 1-year rolling contracts. If he continues with that, you would be hopeful that he will remain the constant there, and whatever personnel comes in will support him in his overall vision of the way that the club is going, the direction they're going. Like if Leo goes, I think you're looking at a very different individual coming in that has a completely new vision, and probably someone that is experienced, and it is an attractive job to draw in necessary applicants. In other cases, I guess the other thing too is you can't leave it too late. The last thing you want is for the best coaches to be snapped up by other teams. So you would want clarity around where individuals see their roles over the coming years. I think someone that's kind of the forgotten man on this, who might fit in perfectly to that environment, is someone like Jordan Murphy. Obviously an Irish guy. Things didn't go brilliantly for him at Leicester, but yet you look at the foundation of what he built. There's no doubt that Steve Borthwick added to those foundations. On the back of it, they managed to win the Premiership last year. He's gone from coaching at the moment, but from an intellect point of view, there's not many sharper players than Jordan Murphy. The way he saw the game, the vision that he has as a player himself, but also from a coaching perspective. And I think he probably got caught a little bit in that Stuart Lancaster world as head coach, where there was so much other stuff, peripheral stuff to be focusing on, that he wasn't able to give the time and energy and effort to the actual coaching. So him coming in a supporting role, an attack coach role, or even in a defensive role, I think could fit brilliantly well. Obviously, the two lads played together in Leicester as well. They know each other. They get on well. Geordie doesn't have any ego as well. He'd be more than happy to share the wealth of success with Leo and vice versa. So it just looks from the outside, if you're thinking about individuals to come and fit into Lancaster's role, I think you could do an awful lot worse than someone like Geordie.
So he is a boots on the ground kind of guy.
Yeah, I like he would tell you he'd want to be. Yeah, like that's what his that's what he was in Leicester before he became before he became head coach. He might have even been director of rugby, which again kind of almost excludes you again from the actual on-field stuff. There's so much other commercial sides and contracts, all of that stuff. If you take all of that away from him and put him in as a head coach, I think you would get a really, really top quality coach. But again, a coach that would need a little bit of time to bed into a new environment. But you look at the skill level of the backs that would be at his disposal in particular. I can only imagine some of the launch plays, because he's a great imagination. He had that Leicester team, even when the forwards are probably having a difficult time. I think some of their launch plays from a back's perspective were always exciting with him at the helm. So yeah, he's one name for me that springs to mind. Obviously the Irish thing, the personality wise, all just kind of would fit in well to that environment. So it'll be interesting to see whether he throws his name into the ring if Leo kind of goes looking for someone to fill Stuart's void.
The trying to plan now probably rules Sexton out, because the last thing you can be doing is having a conversation a year out from the World Cup about coming in and taking over as a head coach. It feels like a step too far. Maybe it's not, because he's such an experienced player.
Yeah, it's a really difficult one to go player head coach, as Leo found, and Leo's done a brilliant job with it. He did go in as assistant coach, I think, for a year, but then to get it not through default, but maybe before he might have anticipated getting the head coaching role. It's a real challenge to kind of differentiate yourself as one of the lads, to then all of a sudden that that coach that to be respected and looked at slightly differently. I don't know what Johnny wants to do. He's obviously doing his 1 day a week with Ardagh at the moment, whether he has long-term aspirations to continue that route, or whether he wants to get back into coaching. My sense is that he'll want his weekends back a small bit. He's been gone for 15 years. He's got 3 young kids. I see him up at rugby on a Sunday morning. Our boys played together. And so
are your kids on the same team?
Our kids are on the same team.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Wowzers.
We're scrutinizing those coaches every single week to hear what their drills look like.
Well, why aren't you coaching them? Come on, step up.
I'm gone every other weekend.
Yeah, I hear you.
I'm gone every.
Wow, that is a lot of pressure. That is a lot of pressure on those coaches.
Yeah. Well, good. Life, it's not meant to be easy. This
and the kids playing in similar positions.
Voluntary coaching is not meant to be easy.
Come on, giving up your time for free.
There's no positions yet. But Lucas Sexton likes a high shot like his old man, so the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Well, there's a documentary in that if we wanted to go down that route. We'll follow their paths over the coming years. just to finish up on Leinster then, Rory O'Connor was saying on Monday Night Rugby that Leinster players are raving about Sean O'Brien, and he seems to have a greater influence already than Dennis Leamy, and that he's in the coaching box for the games. And Andrew Goodman's arrival seemed to come somewhat under the radar during the summer. He's in as assistant coach. He'd spent some time with Crusaders. You would have played with him for a couple of years.
Yeah.
What sort of character is he?
Good guy. I guess I'm trying to think. He would have been. He would have seen the game well. Very experienced. Just a cool head for us. Maybe. Rather than an exceptional talent, just a good footballing understanding. So I'd be bluffing if I said I knew an awful lot about what he saw as his coaching vision, or how he's going to bring a new dimension to what the Leinster setup looks like. I guess time will tell. So yeah, fair play to him. He obviously went NPC into the Crusaders, and then to get this gig is fantastic for him. But obviously he's done some really good stuff with the teams he's been involved in to warrant it, and maybe his IP is greater than I'm giving him credit. When it came to the European team, it would have been me and Dart. I would have played intermittently with him in, the Pro 12 teams it was at that time. So my memories of him kind of really coming in and dominating team meetings would be minimal. I guess he did have some pretty overpowering individuals in Carnes and Lukey and myself and Johnny and Owen Redden and Gordon being there too. So maybe he was only in a couple of years, so he probably wasn't the outspoken person that I'm sure he's subsequently become as a coach. But I'm really keen to kind of see what differentiator he brings to the setup, to the launch plays, to his new role within this Leinster environment. So yeah, again, it's another thing where a little bit of probably 4 or 5 months to see some new content from him will make it really interesting to see what way he wants the game played.